3, 2, 1, blast off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, your weekly visit with two talking heads talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big in managed services. My name is Rich Freeman. I am the Chief Analyst, Channel Master of the organization responsible for this show, and I am joined this week, as I am every week, by our other co-host, Eric Simpson, our Chief Strategist at Channel Master. Eric, how you doing?
Doing well, Rich. Doing well. Ready and raring to go, because guess what time of the year it is, Rich? It's officially Q2 as we record this today. I can't believe a whole quarter has already blown past us, and now we're back at it, ready to grow even further in Q2, along with all of our audience.
Yeah, we certainly hope everybody in the audience here had a great Q1, and frankly, either way, we hope you have an even better Q2, and maybe we can help out a little bit with that on this show right here. So let's, along those lines, let's go ahead and dive into our story of the week here, Eric. This was inspired by some research presented by Logic House recently, just within the last few weeks. Logic House is a very big kind of enterprise-oriented solution provider and MSP. And they went out and did some research, mostly to larger business CIOs. So keep that in mind if you are an MSP focused on SMBs. But I thought the results were kind of interesting and point to both an opportunity and a challenge for the folks in our audience here. What they did basically is go out and ask this survey set here about their thoughts and their experiences with advanced solutions. And what do they mean by advanced solutions? AI, machine learning, IoT. They found that 95% of the organizations they spoke to plan to spend money on those and other advanced solutions in the next 12 months. And similar percentages have invested in those technologies in the last 12 months. So on AI, 95% of the CIOs they surveyed have invested in AI in the last 12 months, 93% on machine learning, 89% on Internet of Things. And I've written about how IoT seems finally to be getting a little bit of traction recently on my blog, Channelholic. But I was surprised to see 89%, even in the enterprise, say that, yeah, we've invested in that area. So what you're seeing there is no shyness, no unwillingness, no hesitation to invest in these sort of leading edge technologies. But what you're also seeing in the results is this is despite the fact that some of the satisfaction around investments made in the past has not been enormously high. 64% of the folks surveyed acknowledge that their next generation technology investments have yet to deliver anticipated returns. So we know we need to invest in these technologies. We have invested. We're going to keep investing, despite the fact that we're not getting great ROI on those investments so far. And that's where you get to the opportunity and the challenge for the folks in our audience, and really anyone who provides IT services to businesses of any size right now. And what that tells you is a couple of different things. When you go into these customer engagements, you really, really need to understand what are the pain points, what are the opportunities, what are the business processes and workflows that you can affect with technologies like AI and IoT. You want to get really clear on that. You want to come up with a use case and a value proposition that is particularly compelling, and get clear on that with the customer. Make sure that it's the right thing for you to be focused on. And then you got to come through and deliver results. And if you can do that, you are in a phenomenal position in the market right now, because it looks like a lot of your competitors, and that probably includes a lot of larger businesses out there, probably charging enterprise rates, are failing to meet those expectations. We are in this point of time around AI in particular, but IoT and machine learning and these other next gen technologies as well, where if you have the ability to focus in on pain points and solutions and helping people make more and spend less on what they do, whatever that is, and looking beyond technology, that is a huge differentiator for you and enormously sticky offering. You do that once for a client, and they're going to come back for more. So, easy for me to say, not so easy for anybody to do. But I think results like this kind of tell you that's where you sort of need to be focused. Don't worry so much about getting them bought into the idea of spending on these technologies. Make sure that you're in a position to help them get ROI on the investments that they make, because if you don't, that's going to be a problem, and if you do, it's going to be an enormous accelerator for you.
Rich, that's really, really great guidance here. So, I mean, I've got a question for you. We look at these cycles, right? And you've been reporting on this and covering emerging technologies for decades. I will say, I will say that nearly decades. And my question is this: I mean, you've seen kind of managed services, cloud, cybersecurity, kind of IoT. We saw like VoIP and all these other things. What's your take on the impact that AI is going to have for MSPs in terms of comparing it to something like a managed services or co-managed IT? I mean, I'm gonna put you on the spot and ask you to kind of look into your crystal ball and give me a sense for how much of an impact you think this is going to have on the MSPs themselves and the customers that they serve here in the future.
Yeah, and that's a huge question. So, and there are two pieces to that. So, obviously, the impact of AI on the MSPs themselves is going to be enormous, and is also kind of we're still at such an early stage that specifying exactly how that plays out is difficult and interesting right now. We know that AI is going to enable MSPs to be a lot more productive and a lot more efficient. And to deliver better service around the clock, 24/7, et cetera, on a self-serve basis with, zero hold time on the phone or waiting for people to get back to you. So AI is going to have an enormous impact on profitability for MSPs and on service delivery and customer satisfaction. But we are early enough in that AI revolution that in some ways the specifics of how that plays out are still a little bit fuzzy. I was at this event recently that Evergreen Services Group was doing in Austin, Texas. Very big collection of MSPs, and one of the senior executives there who I was interviewing was basically saying, I don't really know what my people are going to be doing 5 years from now. And the idea wasn't, I'm not going to have people because AI is doing everything, but AI is going to be doing a lot of what my people do now, which means my people will be doing other things. Gives you an idea. Even somebody as experienced and intelligent and informed about managed services is still trying to figure this out. So we know it'll be a huge impact. We know some of the ways that it'll impact AI. We don't know all of them. And it's one of those things that'll be very interesting for us to watch as it plays out. In terms of the impact for MSPs on their customers, you think about the biggest developments in this industry for us, for the folks in our audience here right now. And the rise of managed services in the past couple of decades is one of those stories. The rise of cloud computing in the last couple of decades is one of those stories. The increasing importance of cybersecurity is one of those stories. Managed services, as you know better than me, that was something that you had to go to customers and explain to them. Here's what it is. Here's why it's beneficial to you. You had to kind of get them bought in. Cloud computing, and similarly, in a way, it's like, this is what the cloud is. Here's how having, some of your applications in the cloud instead of on a server, but you're having an IT conversation, basically with the client. Now, security gets you a little bit more to that boardroom kind of conversation, because the news media is doing a lot of, it's helping us out, doing a lot of work for us by calling attention to the risks that can go with not being properly secured. But it's kind of a defensive story, basically. You don't want to get knocked out by an attack and put out of business. what's kind of different about any of these other themes or stories with AI is here's something that can transform your business in ways that in the short and medium term can have a real impact for you, and on the longer term could be utterly transformational. And so there is a positive story there that MSPs can tell to their clients about the very different kind of business that you can be in relation to what you are today and your competitors and so on. That's not part of the dialogue with cloud or with managed services or even with security. And again, we're all still kind of figuring out what are the angles. And how do you tell that story? I have a post coming up in the blog very soon that's going to be about vertical industry AI, which I think is a good way to kind of get to that. Let's talk about your industry specific needs and the areas where you have trouble. How can I use AI to help eliminate that trouble? That's a great way to start getting people excited about the even bigger things that you might be able to do for them and with them with AI.
That's great analysis, Rich. And I was been thinking about this quite a lot lately, as have many others in our industry and outside of it. And the closest thing that I could, create some sort of a parallel to in terms of getting the conversation between the MSP and their client to become more business outcome focused has been like business process optimization and automation and things like that. Like we've been inching towards that, but that takes a level of, I think, even additional maturity potentially than what having some of these conversations about AI and categorizing data and bringing that into a client's environment for them to really see true business value. Because after all, like you said, how many stories are we hearing in the news about business process optimization or business process automation versus AI? I think, and like you said, we don't have to do as much educating of clients, to your point, like we did with managed services. So I think that it's like such a much broader opportunity for MSPs to bring that business value rather than the traditional solutions that we've been thinking of, kind of like this, like I talked about BPO and things like that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, 95% of these businesses Logicalis surveyed have spent on AI in the last 12 months. 95% plan to spend more on AI in the next 12 months because you can't, turn on the TV, pick up your phone, look at the front page of the Wall Street Journal without seeing AI everywhere. So yeah, a lot of the marketing is being done for us, but basically where that brings customers is, I know this thing is enormous, and I know theoretically it could do enormous things for my business. I don't know what those things are, and there's going to be this huge opening for the solution providers and the MSPs who can answer that question and then deliver on the answer that they provide.
Good analysis.
Well, let's move on to your tip of the week here, Eric. And it gets to something. I mean, everybody in our audience here has a help desk, and everybody in our audience here has level ones on the help desk. But you want to steer people in the direction of having a particular kind of level one at the help desk.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. So this week's tip of the week is all about getting more efficient and profitable from your level one or tier one service desk staff. Rich, in many cases, when I'm talking with MSPs and ask them how they're tiering their service desk, what I typically find is MSPs are like we used to be, and my MSP, back in the early 2000s. So, a lot of things have changed, but a lot of things have kind of stayed the same. And what I mean by that is, we are having a billable resource shifting their focus between different types of revenue generating activities. So, for instance, if we've got a service desk manned by 3 technicians, those technicians are doing more than just closing tickets. They're also driving on site and doing on site support, Rich. They're doing project prep and project implementation and deployment. They're doing all kinds of things that take them away from keeping the ticket queues clear. And so my advice this week is all about assessing the potential benefits of dedicating at least one technician to do nothing but sit on the service desk and close level one tickets. My data says, Rich, that 98% or higher of all tickets that come into a typical MSP service desk, of course, there's outliers, I'm talking generally, will be kind of a level one type of a ticket, something that has a very high potential of being closed during that first call resolution, or if something outside of it causes it to be delayed, as like a user isn't available or waiting on a user or something like that, it doesn't have to be escalated out of level one to a higher level of queue, level two or level three. Now, this takes a little bit of engineering from the service manager to identify what tickets should always go to level one, what tickets should never go to level one, right? I'm not going to get into that criteria this week, but we can do it on an upcoming podcast episode. But if you're getting, more than 16 tickets a day or close to 16 tickets a day on your service desk, then it's something that you should consider is dedicating a level one service desk technician to do nothing but close those tickets. And this means that you'll be much more efficient, much more consistent. That doesn't mean that we're putting that technician in kind of, service desk hell, right? Or a cave forever. It's just, this is the role, and here's how you can compete for another role in the organization, right? So you got to have a succession strategy so that we're not condemning somebody to live their entire existence on level one. Now, believe me, Rich, I've had some technicians that don't want to do anything but level one in my career. So, we've got that too. Hey, and that's fine too, right? But that allows you to maintain a consistency and to meet the criteria of what level one is supposed to do. Level one's job is to keep the queues clear. And there's a difference, Rich, between incident management and problem management. So an incident is a business interruption. So a user has a problem, they can't get to an application, they can't get to the internet, they can't print, something that is stopping them from doing their work. And sometimes level one technicians or even on-site technicians start doing problem management. Problem management is identifying the root cause of an issue because it's a recurring incident. So we didn't fix it right the first or second or third time. Now we've got to spend extra time diving deep into the root of the problem. Sometimes, Rich, the fastest way to get a person working again is to have them, believe it or not, sit at someone else's desk that's on vacation or PTO, or plug in that spare laptop or PC that's in the closet for this occasion, and you set up their profile, or re-image that desktop in a few minutes with today's technology and get those people back to work quickly rather than try to spend hours diagnosing the issue. Ideally, I like to identify tickets that can be closed within 30 minutes or less. That's the first cut. Then that is what goes to level one. And then the next cut is 15 minutes or less. And then I might have a special triage unit in front of level one that closes those tickets in 15 minutes or less. And this is where you can really get 30 tickets a day closed per technician if we do it right. So think about it, team, and give us your comments below if you think this is a valuable tip of the week, if you've already done it, and what your results are.
And I'll quickly point out, we were just talking about the impact of AI on MSPs. That triage function that you were talking about is one where AI is already helping a lot of companies out, and that's going to be more and more true. That that AI is going to increasingly have the ability to do most of that triage work and some of the level one work, and it's going to kind of grow from there. In terms of the general logic behind the advice you're providing there, Eric, I mean, this is a little speculative on my part, so you can kind of set me straight if I'm wrong. But part of what appeals to me about that is just the idea that in theory, you're going to have people on the team who are really, really good at incident management, and maybe other people on the team who can do that, but are really, really good more at the project work or the other sort of functions. And if you've got everybody doing everything, you're probably missing out on an opportunity to really capitalize on people's strengths. So if you have that superstar, level one incident management person, why not let them take on a big hunk of that work and do the stuff that they're very, very good at, and free up some time for the other people who are maybe less adept at that to do other things that are valuable for the business and the clients as well. It just seems kind of logically to me like if you specialize, let people specialize in that way and kind of hone in on what people are particularly good and less good at. It's got to contribute more to efficiency.
Yeah, I like the scenario that you laid out there, Rich. And you think of your MSP as a medical facility, right? You've got folks that specialize in different things because they are really, really good at it. And this allows you to be more efficient and see more patients, right? And work them through the system. Now, again, this requires that level one technician to have everything they need to close the tickets that are being assigned to them, so that the incident management process needs to be documented. They need to be following it properly. And again, one technique to make sure that we are giving that level one technician a bit of a respite, a change of pace, or being exposed to different things is we can rotate technicians in and out of that role as we build that ability for everyone to do the same thing the same way. So at least this way they can come out and maybe work on a project or something, or sit on level two for a while. That's problem management, right? Now we're talking level two is typically, okay, I've got a recurring incident or something that takes more time to resolve. That's the other caveat is, what is the impact and the severity? Where does that ticket go? And this does not mean, Rich, that every ticket starts in level one. Like if you have an outage, we're not going to send that to level. Remember, their job is to keep the queue clear. If there's a site-wide outage, that is going to take someone to focus nothing but all of their time on working that issue until it's completely resolved. That may go directly to a level three or a lead engineer or somebody that can address it. So, think about that. So there are a lot of little nuances to what I'm sharing here, but the overarching idea is, maintain the integrity of the role of level one, keeping that queue clear. And the noisiest queue you're going to have is level one. So staff appropriately. And if you're getting, 50 tickets a day, you may consider dedicating 2 resources to level one, right? And scale that way. So just some thoughts.
Well, all right. With that, folks, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be joined by Xavier Gonzalez. He is the Chief Communications Officer at Kaseya. That means he knows a lot of MSPs. He knows a lot about managed services. He knows a lot about communications. And yes, he knows a lot about Kaseya. And so we're going to speak with him about communications advice for MSPs. This is an area of expertise along with marketing, which he knows a great deal about, that MSPs often have questions about, struggle with. We're going to talk a little bit about events, another area where he has a lot of experience. And then he's going to talk to us a little bit about the Kaseya Connect global event that, as we record this, is coming up in just a little bit over 3 weeks. We'll see what kind of hints he can drop about what will be going on at that event, what we might learn, what exciting things might be happening. We'll find out. All of that is coming up right away here after this quick break. Stick around, folks. We are going to be right back. And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, our spotlight interview segment, where we are joined by a man who is very familiar to me, because very often when I'm interviewing senior executives at Kaseya, he is in the room silently listening very carefully to every question I ask. His name is Xavier Gonzalez. He is the Chief Communications Officer at Kaseya. Javi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate the invite, and I will make one clarifying point. Usually, when I'm in those meetings with you and I'm sitting there quietly, I'm paying as much attention, if not more so, to the responses that those Kaseya executives are providing, as I am to the questions that you're asking. So it is great to be on the other side of that scenario today. So definitely looking forward to the conversation.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue to where I kind of wanted to get started, because ordinarily in this place, I would give the interview guests a chance to introduce themselves and the company they work for. Everyone knows about Kaseya, so please start out by letting folks know who you are and just give them a little information about you. But then tell us a little bit about what the Chief Communications Officer at Kaseya does.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Chief Communications Officer, I actually joined Kaseya a little less than 3 years ago. So think about it. I came in right after the Datto acquisition, and I came in kind of from what we considered more of a marketing communications, right? So a little bit of a combination of those two disciplines. And if you think about the marketing aspect of that, it was less about the demand gen and more about the kind of the brand marketing, right? So really kind of corporate marketing. How are we positioning it? So one of the areas that I was very focused on and very quickly learned that, like I say, was a little bit of a different beast than some of the companies I had worked for in the past, is the social media pieces of this. And also trying to understand very deeply how MSPs specifically want to engage, want to communicate with us at Kaseya, right? So Kaseya, like you mentioned, a lot of folks know who we are, security, IT management, all backed by AI. And so we've been at that for quite some time. But the way that we communicate to the market, the way that we engage with our MSP customers was something that was relatively new. And so, there's a lot that goes into that, as I learned, and a lot of different areas where my team touched, from your traditional communications, some of the corporate marketing, and then also on the event side as well.
Now, you have a few years of experience at Kaseya, but a whole career's worth of experience in the communications and PR areas.
That's correct.
Relatively few MSPs probably have somebody in a communications role. So, but MSPs pretty well. If somebody in our audience had somebody performing that communications function, what kind of ROI would that person deliver? What would that person be doing for the MSP?
Yeah, that in the comm space, it's really that's the $1 million question, right? Is how do you judge the ROI of the general communications, right? And I think you really need to look at comms, especially from an MSP perspective, as part of an overall marketing plan, right? So, consider that you're rolling out some kind of a campaign to try to generate more customers, whether that be locally, regionally, even nationally. You need to think about the comms piece of that. So whether it's press releases, trying to do media interviews, doing interviews like this on a podcast, that matches the target audience that you're going after with that campaign. And so again, for MSPs, like you mentioned, probably a little bit difficult for them to have someone who is solely focused on comms. But if you do have kind of that, if you're able to have that marketing individual or someone who is doing at least part-time of their job is doing the marketing, then the comms should be part of that overall plan. And then, in addition to all the stuff going on with press releases, media interviews, reaching out to journalists that might be interested to your target audience, you also want to consider how you're conveying your messages on social media, right? And so again, you want to think about it all holistically. You want to have a relatively standardized set of messages that may be tweaked a little bit depending on the medium in which you're promoting it. So that's the best way. When I talk to MSPs, as you know, here at Kaseya, we do a lot of individual meetings with MSPs, see what they're hearing in the market, see how we could be more helpful, try to get their feedback, and then also, we learn a lot about the way that they're operating. And when they come to me, a lot of it, we talk about comms in that respect. And then we also talk a lot about, again, the events, right? How to think about events they can engage in to drive more business. And then on the flip side, how should they be maximizing their opportunities at events, at industry events like the ones that we host, but the ones, everybody in the industry is hosting nowadays.
Javier, from an MSP's perspective, you would typically think that maybe just kind of larger MSPs could have a dedicated role doing this. So I would imagine that if an MSP is thinking about this and thinking about maturing into more of a marketing dedicated marketing, PR, communications role looking forward, they would need to be wired a certain way, right? So maybe the dragon slaying engineer might feel uncomfortable in a role like that, whereas more of kind of a salesperson or a sales engineer or a completely just a people person, customer experience person. Can you give us a little insight into what type of natural behavior comfort zone somebody conducting that communications role, maybe as a part-time or full-time, what would that ideal person look like from a comfort zone behavioral wiring perspective to really be successful, would you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think especially, as you mentioned, a lot of MSPs don't necessarily can go on and get somebody who had a communications degree coming out of college, right? So one of the things I think is that pops to mind immediately is a relative comfort in I say public speaking, but just speaking to, individuals, speaking to audiences, whether it's 50 people, 100 people in a room, whether it's 30 people in a room. But then similarly, getting into a situation where they're having a normal conversation just like this, with, hosts on a podcast, with journalists, with individuals that might be doing a little bit kind of more business development, but just that ease, a natural individual, it just comes naturally to them to just have those kind of conversations, and be able to, in a very organic way, convey the messages of the company, right? In this instance, obviously an MSP who's talking about the value they're creating, talking about, some specific anecdotes around their customers, things that they've been able to do. And so being able to convey that in a pretty easygoing way. I think number two, and my comms team is great at this, right? Is that written communication. And so being able to see how they are conveying messages to customers, and this could be as simple as emails that are going out, and how they're engaging via written communication with different customers, different stakeholders. Are they able to convey the messages that may be a little bit complex in a concise fashion, in a simple fashion, and in a way that multiple audiences can understand them? Because sometimes, especially in the MSP world, you'll have folks who are a little bit more technical. You'll have folks who are a little bit more salesy, maybe the business owners. And so you have a few different kind of ways of having to communicate. And so being able to do that in a written way that is concise, and simplifying complex ideas, I think is another kind of just core competency that you want to look at an individual who is doing the comm side. And then the last piece, I think, is individuals that can build and nurture relationships. And the reason I say that is, having conversations, for example, with journalists, or with, even industry analysts or just influencers in the market. Those are conversations that are born out of relationships that are nurtured over time. Why is that important? So let's say you're working with, a journalist that's covering technology in Ohio. Let's say your MSP is based in Ohio. You want that journalist to have a good rapport with you, so that individual may call you because there's an idea, there's a story that it's not necessarily that you have to go out and pitch to them, right? But it's something that they think of you and they call you for it, because they know that you have some expertise in this area. You can comment on it, and then that obviously helps to elevate the perception of your individual MSP, because you're seen as a thought leader, because you were quoted in that Ohio newspaper or that Ohio technology journal, the business journal in that area, whatever the case may be. So I'd say those kind of three things, right? So being able to kind of just hold your own in conversation in a public setting, some written communication, and then being able to build and nurture those relationships with folks so that they feel comfortable continuing to call you and feeling that you're going to give them good, but not fully kind of salesy kind of feedback and thought leadership feedback when they're working on something that they're trying to write, or a podcast like this.
There are probably folks in the audience who are thinking, I would love to have somebody on my team in a comms role, in a PR role, working on social media, working on events, getting the exposure in the media. But either there's nobody on the team with the bandwidth or the skill set to do that, or even more likely, it costs too much.
Correct.
Are there affordable options? I mean, for somebody who cannot afford to have a full-time or even half-time communications professional on their team, what are maybe some more affordable, cost-effective options to consider?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think so. There's a couple different things that when MSPs ask me kind of a similar question, I give them some guidance on, right? So one is there's freelancers, former journalists that again have some of those skills, can help to craft a story. And if you engage them in kind of a project basis, they're able to give you kind of just a basic tool set that allows you then just some basic comms blocking and tackling that'll give you some pieces that you can leverage in order to, if you're the owner of the business, you could use that to maybe reach out to a few folks on LinkedIn. You could do a little bit of networking, but with a mind towards, kind of more the PR communications aspect, right? So these are things like a fact sheet about the business, a bio of the CEO or the owner of the MSP, some core capabilities that they could speak about. They could potentially even look for a set of speaking engagements that are potentially available for the owner or even for the techs at an MSP. So there's that freelancer, small PR agency. You engage them on a project basis. So think about that as kind of a little bit of an investment without necessarily an ongoing recurring cost that you're looking at over, a 12-month period. You could look at anything between 90 and 180 days where you're able to get some core pieces together, right? The other thing that we've seen, and this is actually very mutually beneficial, this scenario, is the idea around internships or even existing college students, right? So what in the comm space specifically, yes, the education and just learning some core competency at the university level or the college level is important. It is very helpful. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing is the real life experience and being able to build up a portfolio of work that you're able to showcase to future employers, like, if it's us at Kaseya or fill in the blank company. So being able to work with, again, either existing college students, college students that maybe, or someone who's a recent graduate, those are opportunities for them to do some work, do work that is meaningful, have them gain some experience, and allow for very cost-effective way to get a little bit of a comms piece up and running. And they'll have some textbook knowledge, if you will, that they'll have picked up in college, and they're kind of learning from their professors, and they've picked up enough knowledge on the theoretical of how to run comms programs for a company, but they'll be able to pick up some real life experience. And again, we'll take you in this instance, right? They take you from zero, to maybe halfway where you need to be at, until you're able to hopefully develop the business to a point where there is the opportunity to have either half of somebody's time that's dedicated to the corporate marketing or the comms role, or even somebody full time who's doing that marketing and communications for your MSP.
Javi, speaking as a former MSP, we're really, really good at a specific set of skills, but we sometimes, going back to that, kind of trying to absorb what's good for the business and becoming more mature business owner, kind of expanding into, maybe this communications role, maybe more of a forward thinking role. I'm guessing you coach executives on communication skills based on what you've seen at Kaseya and working with partners. Can you, and this may be a tough ask, can you boil it down to maybe a checklist of things that an MSP should be thinking about in this area in terms of what activities they should conduct, maybe on a weekly basis? And then for extra cherry on top, if you can kind of forecast how much time you would advise somebody that's just starting out considering expanding their role or bringing somebody in that kind of communications role.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, right? I think for the MSP owners themselves, right, they want to think about spending a little bit of time every week refining their own individual thought leadership, right? So that could be, those could be LinkedIn posts that are talking about, it doesn't have to necessarily be about my MSP's value proposition and this is what we're delivering to customers, but really what they're seeing in the market, right? And so that's one way of starting to develop the muscle of being able to speak authoritatively around a specific topic. And then that becomes that the building out of that, call it a persona, if you will, helps to then attract other opportunities, again, where podcasters like you guys, a journalist might be looking at it, someone who's just looking to have conversations, that then starts to work on it. So again, it could be some LinkedIn posts. It could be posting to your MSP's website, right? So if you're able to have a blog functionality, just updating things there, sharing that with customers. So being able to spend some time every week to think about that. One of the things that we do at Kaseya is, and you hit it right on the head. We work with our executives to polish their skills when it's a situation where they're speaking in front of a group, right? So they're speaking at one of the industry events. They're speaking at potentially one of our events, one of our customer events. They're getting ready for a media interview with industry journalists, even when they're preparing for discussions with industry analysts, right? So we sit down to not only talk about, look, at a high level, they understand the message. They understand who Kaseya is. They understand the individual value of the platform. They thought, the security. They understand all of that at a very high level. But it's really taking that next step to understand who is the audience, what is the conversation about, what's the context around that conversation. And so that's another thing that I would say is being able to, and this is necessarily on a weekly basis, but if you're going through that checklist, is to say, okay, who am I talking to, right? Who is it that I'm having the conversation? If it's a speaking event, who is the audience? What is the makeup of that audience? How is my message going to get delivered? Because, for example, for an MSP, it might be that this is more verticalized, right? This is a group that's, I don't know, they're dental offices or they're law firms or there's a lot of bankers in the room. Well, that's a little bit of a different take on the same message you would deliver anyways. If it was a general office, well, do you want to? It's a little bit more financially driven if it's a room of bankers, or you may use anecdotes that convey the message in a way that bankers are going to be better. They're just going to receive it better. And so that's one thing in terms of a checklist. Who's that audience? What's the format, right? Is it going to be a genuine Q&A? What are the kinds of questions they're going to ask? Is there anything that I'm not super sharp on that I need to go do, make sure I get some research and get some pieces together and really understand it. And so I think that those are some of those things that I would look at. And then, going back to your question around how much time to dedicate. I know MSPs, there's not enough time in the day. There's just not. Just to run the MSP, to service their customers, to deal with vendors like Kaseya, do all of the back office business things. It's tough, and it is. I do not envy them being able to try to carve out time for just the general marketing, or to have some conversations that are kind of more PR focused, more media focused. So, saying in an ideal world, they could spend about at least, let's call it an hour during the week thinking about these things, jotting down some ideas. And then on the weekend, maybe you do spend that hour, another hour, kind of actually putting something together that you can get out there. Now, if you're doing the LinkedIn posting, you want to be mindful of the timing, right? Because there's certain times when you're going to get more eyeballs, and there's sometimes you're not going to get as many eyeballs. You want to be kind of mindful of those kinds of things. But I would say it's about that. But it also brings up another very good point, which is be discerning with the time. Don't just take every opportunity, because if it's a group that doesn't necessarily hit your target, or it's I don't know, you're talking to a lifestyle journalist about what it's like being an MSP, not really going to drum up any business for you. So you got to be very protective of that and be discerning of what is actually valuable. Why don't just do it to do it. Do it in a way that it's reaching the audience that you're trying to get to.
Javi, you joined Kaseya, I believe, after the RMM breach that happened in the summer of 2021, but I'm guessing you've got some crisis communications experience in your background. Yeah. And everybody in the audience here right now, if they haven't already, they're going to find themselves in that kind of a situation at some point in time. There's going to be a ransomware incident. Some cloud vendor they're selling to everybody is down for a day or something like that. what advice would you give to MSPs who find themselves in that kind of really difficult situation about what they should and should not do?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So yes, one of the core competencies that we have on the comms team here, and it's one of the things that you definitely, in any kind of company that you're working in, need to be able to execute against, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? And these things happen, various different scenarios that companies are going to deal with. And so, one of the first things is try to communicate as quickly as possible. So I'm, in all areas of my life, I'm a big believer in, you deliver bad news very quickly, and you deliver good news a little bit more slowly. So it's good news you can take your time on. But the bad news needs to be delivered quickly, but you need to make sure that you balance that with having all of the facts. So you don't want to speculate, and you only share what you know to be true. And so, sometimes there will be the audience, whatever that audience may be. It may be your customers, it could be your employees, it could be anyone. But they may get somewhat frustrated of like, oh, well, it's not enough information. Well, listen, you don't want to be giving information that is inaccurate in a situation like that. So you want to be as quick as you can be with the information, and you want to be accurate. You want to make sure that you are 100% accurate in what you convey, especially at the outset. And then from there, what you want to make sure is that you're communicating on a regular basis with those same audiences. Again, if it's your customers or your employees, you want to make sure that you're saying, okay, here's the situation. We will follow up in an hour, or we will follow up in 2 hours. And then you make sure that you follow up in 2 hours, and then you convey again, when is the next touch point? When am I going to get another update? And you kind of have to go into that mode until the crisis abates. And so in certain instances, that could be 2 days, that could be 24 hours for certain situations. It could be 2 weeks, but you need to make sure that you can consistently keep that cadence until you know and you feel that the situation has either been completely resolved or has abated to the point where you are able to kind of like pull back a little bit, and not have to be constantly updated, right? Customers feel like, or employees feel like, okay, we've got enough information, we know where we stand, and you feel confident in that. But I highly recommend, whether you have a comms person, a marketing person, I highly recommend to all MSP owners to just have a crisis communications plan jotted down. And look, there's a lot of templates out there in the world of ChatGPT. You could probably ask it for one, and it'll give you enough to be dangerous, right? Enough to get started with a plan, so that when something happens, you're now executing against something. That's something very, very critical for us. We have, a very detailed response plan, and we actually practice it multiple times a year. And in our situation, it involves many different kind of cross collaborative teams across the business, not just the comms team, but the comms team obviously plays a role in it. And so that's something that I would recommend. You don't need a comms person. You don't need a marketing person. But you should have a plan that's jotted down that you could look up and then say, okay, well, we want to make sure that we say something in this amount of time, and then our follow-up is this, and our follow-up is that, and you have it kind of outlined, so that when it hits, you're not trying to figure out what it is you want to do or how you want to handle it. You already have it written down, and now you're just following, like Eric mentioned before, you're following a checklist. You're following a plan that doesn't, necessitate you having to make it up as you go.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that perspective, Javier, on having that response plan. Because to me, as thinking about what MSPs have, they have disaster recovery plans. So this is like a communications, response plan when things go wrong, while you're trying to remediate the actual incident or breach or whatever it is. You're activating this communications plan, and I know that I've written some disaster recovery plans in the past that included a communications plan as part of that. So that really resonates with me. But I want to pivot a little bit and see if you can share something with us. Now, we've had Fred Vicola on the show a couple of months ago, and he teased a big announcement at Connect happening here at the end of this month. We know you can't tell us what it is exactly, but What can you share, Javier?
Well, here's a couple of things I can share. Excuse me. So one of the things that we've tried to do is get into a cadence where we're not only sharing the big announcements when we get to the event, but we're talking more regularly to our customers to share the innovations and the new things that are coming out, right? So for example, a couple of weeks ago, we made an announcement where we just highlighted some of the product innovations that we had completed at that point to date in Q1, because, we want to make sure that our customers realize, and what happens is for a lot of the other companies in the space, there are a lot of great companies. They're always making announcements, and they're these single product companies. And so when you take a step back and you look at it from our perspective at Kaseya, we are, in certain respect, there's 40 different single products within it, right? And then we started to consolidate that, and now we're very much about the Kaseya 365 platform. And so we've started to move into that direction. But we are very much moving forward with innovations and further development of that Kaseya 365 platform. So I think your audience and MSPs in general and the thousands of folks who have already signed up for the event should expect something very much, let's say, a platform update for one piece. But there are some other things in other kind of critical areas of the business. On the security side, we'll have a very interesting announcement. I know you guys are going to be participating in some stuff in terms of one of the new forums that we're going to have at Connect, which we're really excited about. We're going to have some announcements in the backup space as well. And we're also going to start, making sure that our customers are aware of the things that are coming, right? So I think what we have traditionally done is really kind of had the big aha moment, and then that's available, and that's what it is. What we want to start to make sure that they understand is what's coming, and have a little bit more of a view of the roadmap and what can they expect in 3 months and 6 months. Look, we do, we'll have Connect in Vegas there at the end of April, the last few days of April. 6 weeks later, we'll have our event in Europe in Dublin, which is also a great event and all of that. But then we're gonna have a little bit of space there. We give our events team a little bit of a break. They're able to take a deep breath. And then we go to early October. We'll be at DattoCon here in Miami. So that's a long way to wait for all of these kinds of. So we have, and we're innovating all the time. So we want to make sure that we have that. And so we'll have some big announcements for sure at Connect that are going to be there. But we want to make sure that our customers start to get accustomed to us announcing innovations, updates, all of the things that we're working on constantly. The millions of hours that the R&D and the engineering teams are putting in, making sure that they're aware of those things more regularly throughout the year, and not just waiting for these big events to say, we're kind of compiling them all and doing it all at once.
Javi, I've been attending Kaseya events for at least a decade now. At those events, at DattoCon events since the acquisition 3, I think, years ago, and now the first full day always begins with a general session, and the general session always more or less begins with a keynote by CEO Fred Vicola. I don't know, maybe some of the folks in the audience will consider this inside baseball, but I'm kind of curious, if he's not in the CEO role anymore, although he is obviously part of the company. I mean, what can we expect? What's going to happen other than what normally would when that event kicks off?
Yeah. So look, one of the things that, and Rich, you've been, like you said, you've been to a decade of these events. And so one of the things that we've heard a lot from customers, and especially for me, right? So I took over the events team a couple of years ago, and kind of looking how can we continue to enhance, innovate on just the event experience itself. And so one of the things that we've heard a lot about is more of these, call it for lack of a better way of thinking about it, third-party voices. So outside voices that are sharing thought leadership that obviously aligns to the way that Kaseya kind of looks at the world, whether it's in the world of backup, in the world of security, obviously, platform. So we have done that. And so for Connect, not only are we going to have kind of what you've come to expect, right? That we're going to open, we're going to make big announcements. It's going to be the general session, and people are hopefully going to be very, very impressed with everything and what that experience looks like. But then throughout the next 2-3 days, and quite frankly, even on the pre-day, you're going to see a lot more, non-Kaseya voices that are going to be on our stages, whether it's industry experts, not to embarrass you guys, but like yourselves, industry analysts that are going to be on the stages, thought leaders. We're also going to have a number of customers that really, so that people can see the impact of what our Kaseya community has experienced because of the kind of work that we've done. Because I think it's very different. Another, comms thing that I always think about, and my team hears me say all the time, a lot of times the messenger is more important than the message, right? Or the messenger can be as important, depending on how you want to say it. And in that case, hearing from a customer who has been leveraging Kaseya 365 endpoint and has been leveraging Kaseya 365 user already, and they're saying, well, listen, in fact, my business, like the profitability model of my business fundamentally changed. Or by using the automations, my technicians are X amount more efficient, and look at the amount of hours that they've saved. And by the way, now all of a sudden, one of my technicians was able to take a course, and now he's a marketing expert. So now he could do comp. Look at that. So those are the kinds of things that we've tried to kind of really focus on, is to bring in those outside voices. And so I think you'll see that, and you'll see a lot more of the deep bench that Kaseya has when you come to Kaseya Connect. And it should be, I mean, we think that it's going to be the best one ever. We really do believe that we put a lot of thought and taken a lot of feedback from customers and implemented it into the way that the experience will be delivered over in Las Vegas.
Avi, you mentioned earlier that you're going to have a security announcement at the event. You've also added a security pre-day event. So who's the target audience for that pre-day event? Why should they attend? And what are you hoping to deliver to the folks that attend that security-focused pre-day event?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to we want them to gain and get exposure to thought leadership. Like, just quite frankly, what is the current threat landscape that we're seeing from all the telemetry of our products, but also from the conversations that we're having with customers? What is it that we're seeing out there in the cybersecurity landscape? We want them to understand the tools that are available, and we wanted to use some kind of real world experiences that are going to be out there, right? And I think this is a place where we want, again, thought leaders to be able to speak to what does that landscape look like, how does Kaseya play a role in it, and where do the tools like the ones that we provide and others provide in the market, how should the MSP customers be thinking about that? And then, we also have, and this is a complementary piece to that Kaseya Security Live that we'll be launching on the pre-day of Connect, is the trainings and the workshops. So not only are you understanding kind of what that the idea is that you understand the landscape, you understand the kind of the latest threats, you get some understanding of how how the Kaseya view of the capabilities that you need to be able to protect yourself, your customers from those threats. And then ideally, if you're already a Kaseya customer and you're leveraging some of our tools, now you're learning how to make even better use of them, be more effective, be more efficient with those security tools that you do have. So we're trying to piece all of that together, again, based off of a lot of customer feedback of what they want to see. And so, we think that that'll be a very valuable session, or a very valuable forum. It's not really going to be, it's not about trying to promote or position the Kaseya products. It's about trying to arm our customers and make it very valuable for them. So when they leave Las Vegas, they feel more comfortable, they feel more emboldened to be able to do the most they can to protect, be prepared to mitigate and recover from any, cybersecurity incidents that they may face in the near future.
Javier, thank you so much for taking some time out and joining us on the show. This was all really interesting for us. We are going to see you, Eric and I, in Las Vegas just over 3 weeks from now. For folks in the audience who want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, or learn more about Kaseya Connect Global taking place beginning on April 28th, where should they go?
Yeah, so can definitely find me on the website, and believe me, I'm not difficult to find because I'm the comms person, so they want to try to find me. But we do have the KaseyaConnect.com where you can find more information on the event itself. We actually did create a special code for MSP chat listeners and viewers. So there's MSP chat 20, all one word, that can be used as a code to register. So that way we know that these are the members of the Rich and Eric fan club that'll be attending Connect. We'll make sure that you guys that group specifically has access to the different sessions you guys will be part of, and that obviously you'll be there. And so we're excited to have you guys there. Hopefully you'll be able to have some more conversations with some of our execs that I will sit there quietly and judge what they're saying throughout. And it'll be a great time. And we listen, as everybody who's been to one of our connects knows, we do have a lot of content, and again, we're really leaning into the thought leadership component of what that content will look like. But we will have a lot of fun. One of the things I'm looking the most forward to is we actually were able to engage with a gentleman named Sean Evans. So Sean Evans is the host of a very popular online show called Hot Ones, where guests are eating increasingly more spicy chicken wings as they're trying to answer very serious questions. And so I'm personally very much looking forward to putting our Chief Revenue Officer, Mike Sanders, through this challenge on our main stage with a room of a few thousand people. I'm desperately hoping that he begins to cry and is not able to speak through it as he's getting, as his mouth is on fire from the spice. But no, there's going to be that. There's going to be the parties. There's going to be all that kind of stuff. But again, I think that the real big thing that we've tried to invest in here is that content is more thought leadership. People are going to walk away with very valuable lessons that they could take to help them run their business, to help our MSP owners, help the techs be more effective, more efficient at what they're trying to do, and obviously more successful because, rising tide raises all boats. And so being part of the Kaseya community to us is something we want to make sure that they see a lot of value in being part of that and being at the event with us.
Well, Javi, you've given me something more to look forward to with regard to that event, because I cannot wait to see Mike do a live Hot Ones interview. So that should be interesting.
I am so excited. I cannot accept.
Better him than you, right? But
absolutely. No, I was not doing it. So Sanders was the guy. Absolutely.
Well, thank you again, Xavier Gonzalez, Chief Communications Officer from Kaseya. We thank you so much for joining us on the show. Folks, Eric and I are going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back. When we are, we'll share a few final thoughts about this conversation, have a little fun, wrap up the show. Stick around. We are going to be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of this episode of the MSP Chat podcast. A few things, folks. There are all sorts of things we could talk about, but a few things I want to highlight. So first of all, it came up right at the end of the interview we just did with Xavier Gonzalez. If you are not registered for Kaseya Connect yet, but you would like to attend based on what you heard here, you want to watch their CRO go through the Hot Ones experience, which I can't wait for, by the way. If you go to Kaseya Connect KaseyaConnect.com, go through the registration process. When you're given an opportunity to provide a code, your code is MSPChat20. That will tell folks that, we sent you there, basically. But the reason they put a 20 in that code, the reason the code is MSPChat20 is because in addition to getting information about where Eric and I are going to be and all that kind of good stuff, you'll get 20% off the registration fee. So if you're making last-minute plans to attend, you can get 20% off on your registration fee by using that code. Another thing I will point out, and this it kind of came up, so Eric and I are co-moderating a session on Monday, April 28th. At the very end, it's actually the last session at IT Glue's Glue Experience event, which is part of Kaseya Connect Global. And then we're going to be doing 2 different sessions together on April 29th. So, get the app, go to the website, look that up, come find us. We would love to see you and talk with you. I also just want to point out, for anyone out there who is wondering, we are not being paid for any of those speaking appearances. We're just kind of doing it because it's an opportunity to share some thought leadership with the audience out there. And we have not been paid to have Xavier on the show here. This is just something that we thought was really timely because he is very closely connected to a very big event that's coming up in a few weeks. And also, he performs this role that MSPs need to know a little bit more about. One more thing, Eric, you asked the question. You got there before I did. What is the big news? We did not find out, of course. But it was, so he kind of hinted there's a security piece to that. Probably no surprise there. He said there's a backup piece to it as well. I don't have a theory on that just yet. But that's interesting. I will be thinking about that. And how is that maybe connected to the security news? So now we have something to chew on a little bit for a few weeks until we find out what this announcement is. And as a reminder for folks who missed the interview that Fred Vacola did with us, I think back in January this year, I mean, he was saying this is what we've been leading up to for years. This is enormous. I'll be curious to see.
Yeah, Rich. And it's can I take a guess and throw some ideas out at you what I think might be, and again, folks, we have no knowledge, no inside special information on this. I'm just kind of I'm thinking maybe it's a K365 security, K365 backup, something along those lines, following the K365 releases that we've seen in the past. I'm just guessing maybe it's something like that. What do you think?
Well, remember, there is a backup piece to the Kaseya 365 endpoint, the original K365 SKU. So this wouldn't be the very first time backup becomes part of Kaseya 365. And this much I'll guarantee you, that whatever the news is, the security news, the backup news, however it all fits together, that it will be related in one way or another to Kaseya 365. Because if there's anything we know now, is that every time, so what they have told us at Kaseya basically is there are 4 big announcements on the roadmap that they already have. It's all, they've known about this since before they ever introduced the brand Kaseya 365 to the world. And we got the first of those a year ago at Kaseya Connect. We got the second one at DattoCon last fall. So I think at this point we kind of know installment number 3 is coming in a few weeks at Kaseya Connect, and the 4th and final installment, will be coming at DattoCon 2025. So I don't know. Whatever the security news is, whatever the backup news is, it will be related in one fashion or another to Kaseya 365. I would guess it will be related to another SKU. But it's just interesting to me. So, Fred set this up as ginormous news. There's already some security in the Kaseya 365 user SKU out there, already a piece of backup in the endpoint. What could they have coming that is enormous and related to security and maybe backup as well? We can speculate for a little while now.
All right. I'll speculate more on our next podcast.
Okay, good. All right. And folks in our audience, go ahead and reach out to us and send us your own speculation. We would love to know what you think might be coming along here. And with that, folks, we have time now only for one last thing. And we are recording this episode on Friday, April 4th, a few days after April Fool's Day. A few days before April Fool's Day, 7-Eleven announced that they would be doing, on April Fool's Day, they would be introducing a mystery donut that would be available at all 7-Eleven stores throughout the month of April. This is apparently something that they've done in the past. They might be, I'm not entirely clear. It sounded a little bit like they're reviving this tradition right now. It is interesting to me that this is timed to coincide with April Fool's Day. We know it's going to be a Bismarck-style donut. There will be a filling of some kind in it. I got to believe it's going to be a weird filling of some kind. Otherwise, why do it on April Fool's Day? But here's the thing, Eric. I am no kidding. I went and I looked on April 1st, on April 2nd, what was the mystery donut? Because I had seen this last week. As far as I know, as we were recording this on April 4th, they have still at least not publicly announced what the donut is. Now, I am just, as we speak here, I'm just a few blocks away from a 7-Eleven. Maybe I should go for a walk and see if it's there, find out what it is, report back next week. But, it's supposed to be available at 7-Elevens everywhere throughout the month of April, and we're 4 days in. Where's my mystery donut?
Rich, I have a couple of friends in law enforcement. I'll see if they have any inside information that they could share with us. The other thing that I found that I was laughing a little bit inside is I had no idea that that's what a donut with filling inside of it was called, a Bismarck style donut. So thanks for educating us, Rich, on that one.
That's probably a whole other conversation. I think that's like a regional thing. I think in the Midwest, maybe they call those Bismarcks. I don't know. But yeah, I only within the last few years, I stumbled across that fact myself. Oh, is that what they call them over there?
Well, now I'm hungry for donuts now. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah.
So now I've got that craving. So, appreciate it.
Well, folks, while Eric and I get ready to go out and get donuts, we thank you very much for joining us here on the show. That's all the time we've got this week. We're going to be back again next week with another episode for you. Until then, we will remind you this is both a video and an audio podcast, which means if you are listening to us, but you would like to check us out on video, go to YouTube, look up MSP Chat. If you are watching us on YouTube, but you're into audio podcasts, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, wherever it is. You get your audio podcast, you're probably going to find us there too. And however it is you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. It's going to help other people find and enjoy the show just like you do. This program is produced by the great Russ Johns. It is edited by the great Riley Simpson. They're part of the team with us here at Channel Master. They are ready, willing, and able to create a podcast for you as well, if you would like them to. Podcasts, as I always remind you, are a tiny, tiny sliver of what we do for our clients at Channel Master. You can get the complete picture by visiting www.channelmaster.com. Channel Master has a sister organization called MSP Master. That is Eric working one-to-one with MSPs to help grow and optimize their business. You can learn more about that venture at www.mspmaster.com. So once again, thank you very much, folks, for joining us. We'll see you again in a week. Until then, please allow me to remind you that you cannot spell channel without MSP.